Three men are about to get thrown into the fire, and only one of them is walking away with his job still safe. Pittsburgh just revealed exactly who's throwing the football this weekend, and buried inside that decision is a signal about who's already been quietly cut from the quarterback race. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly where this quarterback room stands heading into the most important month of the preseason. Before we dive in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything else we've got coming on this team. Let's start with the headline. The Steelers have set their quarterback plan for preseason week 2 against the New York Jets, and head coach Mike McCarthy laid it out himself. Second-year passer Will Howard, who came out of Ohio State, is going to run the entire first half. Then rookie Drew Allar, the Penn State product Pittsburgh brought in this offseason, takes over for the entire second half. Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph are both sitting this one out completely. McCarthy explained the thinking pretty plainly, saying Howard didn't get any game action last year. Allar is a true first-year player, and with two veterans he already trusts in Rodgers and Rudolph, he wants to squeeze every rep possible out of his two younger arms while he still can. Here's what that decision actually tells us. Sitting the veterans isn't a punishment, it's a vote of confidence. McCarthy already knows what Rodgers can do, and he was clearly impressed enough with Rudolph's outing the week before that he doesn't need to see more of him against Jets backups. That leaves the reps for the guys the coaching staff still needs to evaluate. And that's where things get interesting, because it raises a real question about the pecking order behind Rodgers. Now let's get into the injuries, because this list is not small. Multiple players missed practice, including a couple of key offensive weapons. Wide receivers Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf remain out. On defense, the situation is even more alarming. Cornerback Joey Porter Jr. is dealing with what's officially called a back issue. Star cornerback Jalen Ramsey has a knee problem. Safety Jaquan Brisker and safety Israel Mukumu are both banged up as well, and that's on top of a couple more defensive back injuries the team is managing right now. That's a huge chunk of Pittsburgh's secondary sidelined at the same time, and it's part of why the front office has reportedly been sniffing around veteran depth at defensive back through trade calls. McCarthy did offer one piece of good news, though, saying he expects the vast majority of these guys to be full go by the regular season opener. And finally, the contract story. New details came out today on defensive tackle Keeanu Benton's extension, and this deal just got even better for Pittsburgh. It's 4 years, $72 million total, $18 million a year on average, but only $14 million of that is fully guaranteed. That means the Steelers built in a real escape hatch. The cap hit this season is under $5 million, and while it climbs over time, General Manager Omar Khan structured this so the team isn't locked in if Benton doesn't perform. That's the full picture of everything that dropped today. Now let's actually dig into why each of these stories matters so much more than it looks like on the surface. So let's go back to that quarterback rotation, because I want to talk about what it really means for the roster battle happening underneath it. In my opinion, this is exactly the right call by McCarthy. At this stage of the preseason, I don't think the veterans should be taking a single snap. Every rep left on the clock should belong to Howard and Allar, because those are the two guys whose futures are still genuinely unwritten. But here's the question worth sitting with. Because Rudolph isn't playing this week, does that mean he's already locked in as this team's backup quarterback? Think about it. In the NFL, the players who typically sit out preseason games fall into one of two categories. Either they're hurt, or they're already safely on the roster. Rudolph isn't injured. So what does that tell you? My honest read is that Pittsburgh isn't ready to hand him the job outright without making him earn it on the field too. It's more likely they simply want a clean, uninterrupted look at both young arms before they make any real decisions. But even with that in mind, I still believe Rudolph's experience gives him a massive edge to be QB2 heading into the regular season, even if Howard plays lights out the rest of the way. At this point, it feels like Howard isn't really fighting Rudolph for anything. He's fighting himself, and fighting to prove he deserves a roster spot at all as a fourth quarterback. And that raises something worth watching closely. Carrying 4 quarterbacks on a 53-man roster is rare, but it's not impossible, and Pittsburgh sure sounds like a team building toward that. Every time McCarthy is asked about Howard or Allar, he doesn't just give a polite answer, he gushes. He's talked about seeing a legitimate future starter in Howard. That is not how a coach talks about someone he's planning to release in 3 weeks. At the same time, he keeps praising Rudolph's preseason performance even while choosing not to play him again. Put those two things together, and it really does look like this coaching staff wants to find a way to keep all 4 passers on this roster if they possibly can. If somebody does get cut, though, I'd put my money on it being Howard. He was a 6th-round pick, which means the team has 0 long-term financial obligation to him. If the staff decides Allar is the better developmental option and they'd rather keep a proven veteran backup in Rudolph, Howard becomes the odd man out. And that stings, honestly, because by every account he's done everything the coaching staff has asked of him. He just landed in a genuinely brutal numbers game. If he keeps playing well these next few weeks, though, his odds of sticking around as that 4th arm absolutely go up. So here's your first question of the day. Down in the comments, give me a straight yes or no. Does Will Howard make this 53-man roster? I want to see the debate down there. Now let's dig deeper into these injuries, because the pattern here is genuinely worth worrying about. Losing your top 2 receiving threats at the same time is never ideal in camp, but it's the defensive side that should really have fans concerned. 6 different members of the secondary have dealt with something this summer. When you lose that many defensive backs at once, even temporarily, it doesn't just thin out depth, it forces backups who weren't expecting real reps into significant playing time in live preseason snaps. And that's exactly the kind of situation that leads to blown coverages and costly mistakes. It's also exactly why you've heard Pittsburgh's name connected to trade rumors for available veteran defensive backs around the league. When McCarthy says he expects guys back by week 1, that's genuinely reassuring, but expects is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Injuries in the secondary have a nasty habit of lingering, and soft tissue issues in particular can resurface right when you think a guy is finally ready to go. Let me ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being completely unconcerned and 10 being a full-blown emergency, how worried are you about this injury list heading into the season? Drop your number in the comments, because I genuinely want to see where the fanbase lands on this one. Now, back to the contract, because this is the story I actually think deserves the most attention today. When the base numbers came out a few days ago, for years and $72 million, it already looked like a smart, team-friendly deal. But finding out that only $14 million of that money is fully guaranteed changes the entire calculus. This is a contract Pittsburgh can walk away from relatively cleanly if things don't pan out. The cap hit stays manageable this season, sitting under $5 million. And while it does rise in future years, remember that the league's overall salary cap keeps climbing by tens of millions of dollars annually thanks to new broadcasting revenue. That growth alone makes absorbing this contract easier every single year. And if Pittsburgh ever needs to move on early, the dead cap charges attached to this deal aren't crippling. Realistically, you're looking at the team being fully committed for maybe 2 more seasons, with a genuine off-ramp opening up as soon as 2028 if they need it. Think about what that actually means. This isn't just a good contract. It's a low-risk, high-upside contract, and that's the best kind of bet a front office can make on a young interior defender. And Benton is exactly the kind of player worth betting on. He's one of the more disruptive, athletic interior pass rushers in this league right now, and with him stepping away from playing nose tackle duties this year, he should have more opportunities to actually get after the quarterback instead of just eating up blockers. If he takes that next step and becomes one of the premier interior pass rushers in football this season, which I genuinely think is within reach, this deal is going to look like an absolute steal in hindsight. And if it doesn't work out that way, Pittsburgh isn't stuck. That's the beauty of how Omar Khan built this thing. So it's grading time. In the comments, give this extension a letter grade. A, B, C, D, or F, now that you know the full guarantee structure behind it. My grade is an A. This is a contract that rewards the team if Benton becomes a star and protects the team if he doesn't. That's about as close to a win-win as you can build in today's NFL. And it's another sign that this front office knows exactly what it's doing when it comes to locking up young talent without mortgaging the future. That's everything for today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot more Steelers coverage coming your way in the days ahead, and you won't want to miss any of it. Until next time, let's go Steelers.